Chapter 120. You are the meaning of my obsession. Guming drove the car over, Wei Ran helped Mu Ziking into the car to check for him, and the others stood guard around the car. After taking off Mu Ziking's clothes, she covered her mouth and forced her exclamation back into her throat. The horrible wound covered the entire back. Mu Ziking's previously broad and smooth back was now covered in bruises and turned white, and the wound was so deep that some broken bones could be seen. Behind him, Wei Ran tried hard to control the trembling and cleaned the wound carefully with her hands. Tears kept falling down involuntarily. From the examination results, it can be seen that Mu Ziking suffered from 4 fractures of varying degrees in his spine, the most serious of which was that a rib was inserted into the lung with only millimeters missing. Although the broken bone didn't hurt the organs, Mu Zi suffered serious internal injuries from that heavy blow. Wei Ran took out medical supplies to treat Mu Ziking, lined him with white gauze with bone-healing medicinal materials to fix his chest and waist, so that the broken bones can heal faster and avoid secondary injuries. When Wei Ran was tightening the white gauze, she heard Mu Ziking frown slightly and took a light breath. She quickly calmed down, not daring to move anymore. Her mind was in a mess. What's wrong? Does it hurt? Didn't you already take painkillers? She was in a mess. Then she took out the painkiller and choked up and said, "Take it again, you won't be in pain anymore." She suddenly remembered something. Yes, there is still water. Where did the water go? Ran, relax. Mu Ziking wrapped her bewildered little hand into his warm, big hand, and stroked her fair and pink cheeks with the other hand, wiping away the moist and clear skin. Pearl. Wensheng said softly, "I'm fine and I don't feel any pain. It's just that the bandage is too tight, and I can't breathe. Don't you know how effective your own god-level medicine is? If you care too much, you will be confused." Mu Ziking's deep and melodious voice seemed to be a magical force that gradually calmed Wei Ran down. But the image of Mu Ziking flying several meters away would keep flashing before her eyes, making her terrified. Looking at him with teardrops still in his eyes, "Brother, if I can be stronger, you won't be hurt because of me now." With the blessing of red fruit, he is ahead of many supernatural beings in the southern base, but because she awakened her abilities very late, she was indeed far behind Gu Ming and the others. Mu Ziking just hugged her into his arms. Wei Ran didn't dare to move, for fear of touching his wound, feel his powerful heartbeat in his arms. Then she heard Mu Ziking's words that touched her heart deeply. "My person and my heart are all attached to you. You are the meaning of my life, and isn't that what I am to you?" Wei Ran buried herself in his neck with sobs. "Can't say anything, just keep nodding." For a long time, everyone thought that Mu Ziking was a godlike existence, but they also forgot that Mu Ziking was also a human being. He also hurts and hurts. Everything you do is for the people you care about the most. As long as there is Wei Ran in this world, that's what his heart wants. After Mu Ziking finished treating his wounds, everyone moved to other places. Now it's too disgusting to have limbs and corpses here. Gu Ming stopped to rest after driving for more than 40 minutes. Wei Ran pulled out the RV, and Gu Ming set up the laser protection net to a larger area, so that Xiao Bai could have more activities. There is still a folding table outside the caravan with food on it. Wei Ran prepared porridge and side dishes for Mu Ziking. Just as Mu Ziking wanted to pick it up by himself, Wei Ran snatched it first, blew the porridge from the small spoon, tested the temperature, and fed it to his mouth. "You have to be still. Try not to move. The bones will be stronger. Grow up quickly." How could Mu Ziking refuse? He was very willing to enjoy it. Su Yi asked Mu Ziking suspiciously, "Brother Cheng, did you also come in by accident?" Mu Ziking shook his head slightly. "I came in by myself." This sentence surprised everyone. There really isn't a place their brother Cheng can't go to. "Brother, did you hear our voices?" "No." Wei Ran looked at Mu Ziking in confusion. "Then how did you know we were here?" Mu Ziking turned to look at her, a light word. "The scenery on that mountain is not bad." This sentence made Wei Ran purse her mouth. It was indeed because of this that they came in at the time, and Muzikang took their thoughts to death. Gu Ming looked at Muzikang and said, "In the past 2 days we have been looking for an exit, but there is no clue about the exit. It is all in this endless land." Muzikang turned his cold eyes to the outside. "The mountain you see is an extremely rich iron ore, so this mountain forms a strong magnetic field effect. When the magnetic field is the strongest, it will fall into the chaotic world derived from it when moving at the speed of light. Of course, except moving at the speed of light, there will also be other ways of entry, such as the gap created by the tilt of the chaotic world. I think that's how those aliens fell, and it should have been a long time ago to see them grow like this. Because staying in a strong magnetic field for a long time, it will mutate. Whether it is good or bad, it is not sure." Jiang Nanfeng had goosebumps all over his body. "Then can we still go out? It won't be that we will become giants of 3 or 4 meters in the end, right?" Muzikang pondered for a while. "Come in when the magnetic field is the strongest, and you should go out at the place with the strongest magnetic field." After entering, I tried to use my consciousness to explore the place with the strongest magnetic field, but I still couldn't find it. He paused for a moment, then continued calmly, "It may be because I only have 30% of the abilities left after I came in." 30%, Wei Ran exclaimed. "We still have complete abilities when we come in. Could it be that the magnetic field has more restrictions on God-level abilities? Why so many?" Muzikang didn't know either. "The magnetic field is too complicated, and there are many variables, so it is impossible to say. But don't look at it, sounds like a small 30%, it is still far higher than anyone here." Jiang Nanfeng sat in the chair and sighed, crossed his hands on the back of his neck and looked at the gray and twilight sky. "If Chen Wei is here, we will be all together, so even if we stay here forever, we will be happy to become a giant in the end." Wei Ran thought of Chen Wei's ruthlessness every time he ate dog food, and couldn't help laughing. "Don't you still want Chen Wei not to marry for the rest of his life, and watch you show your love every day here?" Gu Ming was expressionless. Cold Liang said something. "He hates and is happy." Wei Ran and Yan Yan Yang laughed half to death while holding their bellies unconsciously at Gu Ming's usual humor. According to the inertial reminder of the body clock, it is time to go to bed. Wei Ran made a soft nest for Xiao Bai outside the RV so that he could rest comfortably. When Muzikang returned to the room, he saw that Wei Ran was dispensing the medicine for rapid bone growth again, and there were several large glasses of unknown liquid on hand. "Isn't this for me to drink?" "Yes, how do you know?" Muzikang held his forehead helplessly and sighed. Chapter 121. Muzikang, who had been tossed about by Wei Ran about the artifact that guides the direction, was finally able to sleep in bed. Because the wound was on his back, Wei Ran was not allowed to sleep on his side, and could only let him sleep on his stomach. Wei Ran folded her hands and rested her chin, lying on her stomach and staring at Muzikang quietly, without saying a word. Ordinary people would definitely feel uncomfortable if they were stared at so intently. But Muzikang is a person who does the opposite, and he likes Wei Ran the most when he is all about him in his heart and eyes. He teased Wei Ran so good-looking. Wei Ran, with delicate eyebrows and eyes, moved closer to him, smiling like a flower. "Looks good. My favorite brother is the best, most handsome, or favorite in the world, my people, the..." Sudden sweet words filled the room. Muzikang was dumb, and then laughed. "Your little mouth is so sweet tonight." He wanted to reach out to caress her, but Wei Ran stopped him. "Oh, don't move around, you can't do it now." Muzikang's face darkened suddenly. "Who can't do it? Who is that who always begs for mercy every time?" "Wei Ran, tell me clearly, you." Wei Ran's hand covered all the private words on the dirty bed and blocked him in the thin lips. Wei Ran's face suddenly turned red. Yuan Exing angrily said, "Who said you can't do that?" Muzikang smiled in her low voice. His usual cold eyes were now full of warm smiles. He held her catkin tightly and kissed her tenderly. "After I didn't hear her voice that night, I rushed to search the town immediately, and there was no trace of her. His heart has been suspended. It wasn't until I finally heard Wei Ran's voice after entering the chaotic world that I finally let go of my heart. Why not Wei Ran? Thinking of the past 2 days, she murmured, brother, I really thought I could never go out again. I was just thinking that if I come back to you again, then I will never leave you again. Muzikeng knew that Wei Ran was frightened. He caressed her hand and said softly, I said before, except for your secret realm, there is no place that can stop me from entering. Don't be afraid. People outside said that Muzikeng was cold-hearted, but the only thing he put his mind to was Wei Ran. Although he was very willing for her to stay by Muzikeng's side all day long, but he didn't want her to be shadowed because of it. Muzikeng just wanted her to be by his side freely. Wei Ran's heart felt soft after being moved. Immediately afterwards, I heard Muzikeng's next sentence. There is one more place you missed to check. What place? Here. But, you can't check it now. It's okay. Muzikeng told Wei Ran that he was injured. Take the initiative, now her legs are so weak that she can hardly walk. Fortunately, there is still body function to recover, otherwise, if she walks out of this state of weak legs, anyone will know it at a glance and she will be ashamed to death. She stared and glared. Muzikeng smiled lightly and deliberately evaded. Who told you to drink a lot of healthcare medicinal materials for me? How can I hold back when I see Wei Ran, who I miss most, just after my blood energy is up? It made Wei Ran dumbfounded, and he could only blame I hate. When Wei Ran changed the dressing for Muzikeng's wound when he got up, not only did he not see the bones anymore, but he even saw that the wound had begun to grow fleshy, not scab. Since Wei Ran had supernatural powers, it seemed that the herbal medicines in the secret realm had also become spiritual, and their healing had reached a level of supernatural speed. She told Muzikeng that it was unbelievable. But Muzikeng said that this is normal. All the things in the secret realm are built by you and are closely related to you. It is not impossible for you with supernatural powers to affect them. Wei Ran thought about it too and jokingly said that it is very likely that I will have healing skills in the future, and I will become a unique witch. After Muzikeng and his team finished packing up, they started driving around to see where the magnetic field was strongest. Wei Ran changed to a more comfortable nanny business car. Each person has a separate seat, which can greatly relieve the fatigue of long-term driving. But they searched all day and found nothing. Zhang Nanfeng opened the car door and said lazily, there is no sunrise and sunset here, no four seasons and no end. If you are alone in it, you will go crazy sooner or later. Su Yi also got out of the car, stretched his hands and feet, and sighed. This chaotic the world reminds me of the mineral mountain we have been to before, and the 1,000-year-old banyan monster is full of wonders. Muzikeng mused after hearing Su Yi's words. Seeing that Muzikeng was silent for a long time, Wei Ran asked, brother, what's the matter? Muzikeng stepped out of the car with long legs, looked at the boundless chaotic world, and frowned. Ran, bring the meteorite disk that was in the tomb before. It may be an accident to enter the chaotic world, or it may be intentional like Muzikeng, but after entering, you will get lost in looking for the direction and keep turning around. Therefore, there must be an artifact that can resist the disturbance of a strong magnetic field, and can also guide the most chaotic position of the magnetic field. Wei Ran handed it to him in a daze. Gu Ming and the others surrounded him in surprise. Muzikeng lifted the meteorite plate in his hand, and the pointer on the plate suddenly turned rapidly, and finally stopped slowly, pointing steadily in one direction. They came to the position guided by the meteorite disk. But there is still nothing here except the endless barrenness. Wei Ran and the others stood in the middle of nowhere. The wind was chaotic. She turned her head to look at Muzikeng. Brother, there seems to be no exit here. Muzikeng took the meteorite plate and walked forward a few steps with his long legs, with a low, magnetic and cold voice. Indeed, there is no exit here, because there is no exit at all. Wei Ran and Gu Ming were surprised. What? In fact, even if Muzikeng had not been weakened, he still couldn't find an exit. It's because in the chaotic world you can only go in and out. This is also the final reason why Wei ran and the others went around without any clues. Muzikang handed the meteorite disc to Wei Ran to take it back. Seeing that Muzikang was as calm as ever, she asked, "Brother, do you know how to get out?" Muzikang Juni's side face was cold, and his eyes were cold. The sharpness overflowed on the thin lips. If there is no exit, then hack one out. Sudden. Gradually the tide surged around him. Bone fingers are clearly slender and clean, and the 10 fingers are crossed in an instant. 4 fingers are raised in an instant, the thumbs are opposite, and the palms of the palms are in a triangular shape facing outwards. Agile and quick to change the tedious and extremely complicated hand formula. Suddenly. The wind is howling. Twilight, mutant darkness. The wind became more and more violent, sand and stones flew along with the wind, and even the giant black thorns were already crumbling by the strong wind. Wei Ran and the others couldn't even stand firmly. Chapter 122. Breaking through, Zhang Yanfeng was blown to the side when he exited the exit. Gu Ming immediately grabbed him, his face hurt from the violent wind and sand. He covered the back of his hand to cover his face, and shouted loudly. "What's wrong?" Zhang Nanfeng and Gu Ming protected him, and replied, "I don't know, formation skills are extremely mysterious, but it seems that my brother should use formations to release his powerful supernatural power." She guessed right. This is Muzikang's advanced formation. Or break the array. Wherever you are trapped. As long as there are still abilities, even if there is residual blood, it can break through the predicament and find a glimmer of life. The most powerful thing about the spiritual consciousness control ability has always been not the high level, but the power of insight. As long as you understand the profound meaning of the spiritual consciousness, you can do whatever you want. So what Muzikang was looking for was never a simple exit. What he was looking for was the place with the strongest magnetic field so that he could use the strong magnetic field and the power of using supernatural powers to collide violently with each other and forcibly open a gap. Muzikang in the front pinched his hands and finally stayed with his right hand facing inward, with his thumb resting on the middle finger of his index finger, and his ring finger and little finger facing upright. Suddenly retract the back 2 fingers and make a fist. There was coldness in his eyes and he said a word lightly. Broken. At this moment, the gust of wind howled even more violently. The chaotic world suddenly turned dark. At this time, a thin gap with dazzling light gradually cracked in the air not far away. Exit. On the other hand, Zhang Yanfeng, Gu Ming, and Su Yi protected Wei Ran and Yan Yanimo's place, but they could hardly resist the howling wind, and their toes were almost off the ground. On the verge of being blown away. Muzikang returned to them and said something coldly. "Hurry up, we're going out." At that moment, Wei Ran felt that her eyes could not be opened due to the violent wind, and just when she felt that she was about to be blown away, a pair of warm hands held her tightly. In the end, everything was calm. She fell into a warm, hard chest. Yehi, Island, midnight. Chen Wei himself had been in the villa for 3 days, but there was no news from Muzikang and the others. At this time, there was noise in the living room on the first floor. Chen Wei frowned in the room. "Is this Yi Island so easy to enter now?" He walked out of the room quickly, and when he walked down the stairs, he heard the most familiar voice that had been separated for many days. "Finally back. This is what life should look like. Brother Chang is so powerful he can bring us back with just that little supernatural power left. He is Muzikang. I'm hungry, Yi." Chen Wei, who had already descended to the stairs, couldn't believe that this group of people was already in front of his eyes. He was still a little out of shape and asked, "Why did you come back?" Several people in the living room heard the sound and looked at Chen Wei. Zhang Nanfeng yelled, "Hey, Chen Wei, what do you mean we should wander outside for a few more days together?" Chen Wei finally regained his senses when he heard Zhang Nanfeng's messy behavior, and at this moment he thought he was so pleasing to the eye. He sneered, "Ha ha ha, isn't it? Isn't it too sudden? Didn't you say that you are hungry? I'll cook you some delicious food." He didn't see Mu Zikang and Wei Ran, so he asked, "Cheng, what about brother and Xiao Ran?" Yan Yang replied on the other side brother Cheng was injured, Xiao Ran took him to recuperate. Yan Yang didn't say clearly where to recuperate, everyone knew. This is a mutual consensus, even if there is only one of them and no one else, they will never openly reveal any unfavorable information about Wei Ran. But it is extremely rare for Muzi to suffer injuries. Chen Wei nodded heartily. Gu Ming approached Chen Wei with a stern face and said in a low voice, "Brother Cheng, he has temporarily lost all his abilities." Chen Wei immediately became serious and understood. Before Muzi could recover his abilities, they had to have someone follow him to ensure his safety. "Brother, I put the clothes on the side. Remember to put them on after you take a bath in the hot spring. Don't be naked if you think it's too hot. You'll catch a cold." Mu Zikang helplessly supported his forehead and chuckled. From entering here until now, Wei Ran has taken care of her in every possible way, opening her mouth for food and reaching out for clothes. He wiped the water stains on his body with a large dry bath towel, put on the clothes placed on the wooden chair, and stepped out of the antique screen, and there was a chic and elegant bamboo house in front of him. This small bamboo house was built by Mu Zikang some time ago. He had repaired buildings when he was studying abroad, so he still knows a little bit. The interior layout does not have the luxury and grandeur of Yahi Island, everything is simple and warm. Even the structure is just one room and one living room. Seeing him coming in, Wei Ran asked him to sit on the bamboo chair, lifted his shirt, and carefully inspected the wound and bone healing. But the result was far beyond her expectations. This hot spring is also very effective. Not only the severely cracked wounds when I came out have healed, but even the 4 fractures have basically healed, but they are still brittle when they grow up and they still need to be nourished. She carefully wiped the sweat off his body from soaking in the hot spring, lest he catch a cold from the wind. In this way, it is really too much like taking care of a son. Mu Zikang couldn't help but laugh. Ran, I can just wipe off the sweat myself. As he said that, he wanted to bring over the bath towel. But Wei Ran refused. "No, don't say anything, from now on you can only obey my care." Mu Zikang looked at her baby protecting model and laughed in a low voice. Okay, I'm all at your command." Leaving from the chaotic world, all of Mu Zikang's supernatural powers are exhausted, and there are not even any remnants left. Once this happens, the supernatural being will be very dangerous. Because it takes time to restore the ability, and the time cannot be determined. Then the ability must be slowly returned to full health before it can be used again, otherwise it will cause irreversible consequences. So when Mu Zikang returned to the small town, he immediately let Su Yi, who was left with blood in his supernatural power, drink the supernatural powdery water, and immediately took everyone back to Yi Highland. For Wei Ran, Mu Zikang, who has no supernatural powers at this time, is a critical and special protection target. Ho Ho Xiao Bai ran back from a distance, still holding a big pheasant in his mouth. It rubbed against Wei Ran and begged for praise. Wei Ran stroked its snow-white fur with a smile, hugged it and stuffed 2 red fruits into its grinning lion mouth. "My Xiao Bai is really getting better and better, and now I can help you. I've shared the work." The huge Xiao Bai rolled on the ground happily in his heart to show his happy mood. Xiao Bai's move made Wei Ran bend over and laugh non-stop. It turns out that the lion will do the same when he is in a happy mood. The small bamboo house is located on the top of the highest mountain. Get a panoramic view of all the scenery in the secret realm. She looked at the quiet and picturesque scenery below, and then looked at Mu Zikang, who was sitting not far away and was playing with gadgets. The years are quiet and good, but that's it. By the time Mu Zikang recovers from his injuries, it will be 3 days before the outside world. Wei Ran stood behind him and put a thin coat on him, then walked back to him and straightened his collar. Mu Zikang lowered his eyes, watching Wei Ran busy for him. Softness poured into my heart. At this moment, the corner of the mouth that was always cold was pursed into a smile, and he bent down. Wei Ran stopped and asked, "What's the matter?" Mu Zikang stroked her tender lips. Shouldn't you kiss your husband before going out? Wei Ran tilted her head and snickered, covering his thin lips. Deliberately pretending to be innocent and ignorant who is my husband. Why don't I know that I'm married? Mu Zikang pulled her little hand down, and with the other hand tied her thin waist tightly and pulled her into him. With a firm and reliable chest, she said viciously, then you have to remember who your husband is. Well. Chapter 123. I only love that my brother Mu. Ziking used a different method to teach Wei Ran severely before going out, and it was already 20 minutes later. Because Mu Ziking's supernatural ability has not been restored yet, Chen Wei and Su Yi followed him to the office building, not to mention Wei Ran. Now she can't wait to cling to Mu Ziking 24 hours a day. Mu Ziking hadn't been here for several days, but no one doubted that Mu Ziking was not at the base. One is that Chen Wei concealed it well, and when Mu Ziking left, he had confessed that if anyone asked, he would use what happened to Xianxia that night to fight the smoke. So when Bai Anguo came over one day to try to see Mu Ziking, Chen Wei said directly, my brother Cheng has been fascinated by Xiao Ran's cooking skills these days, so he doesn't discuss it recently. In the end, Bai Anguo actually didn't make any noise. Chen Wei told Mu Ziking all about it. The corner of Mu Ziking's cold mouth hooked coldly. Bai Anguo put Xianxia into the Weapons Research Institute at the beginning, and he also instructed him to change his appearance into Ran Ran, because he couldn't contact Xianxia. So he came to test that day, hearing that someone was pretending to be her. Wei Ran suddenly looked up at Mu Ziking and gritted his teeth that Xianxia disguised himself as me to give you ecstasy soup. Then did you? She stopped abruptly. Chen Wei and Su Yi thought that Wei Ran would ask Mu Ziking if she had tricked her or something. Chen Wei also wanted to explain the situation that night to Mu Ziking. As a result, Wei Ran continued what she hadn't finished. Beat her hard. Chen Wei, Su Yi, sure enough, the seemingly weak Wei Ran is a ruthless person inside. The corners of Mu Ziking's mouth turned upwards. He liked her delicate appearance, and also her ruthless appearance. He pinched her small and tall nose. It has been processed into fertilizer in the back hills. Wei Ran raised her face and smiled. That's about the same. This group of people has never had the so-called heart of the virgin, and they must be ruthless when they should be ruthless. Jichong. Base. Xianxia stood in front of the window and looked out at the hazy drizzle. Suddenly, not far from the window, the beautiful figure of a petite girl bumped into his cold eyes. He squinted his eyes slightly, his lips were tightly pursed into a line, and a black claw, covered with terrifying black rhomboids, which looked almost alien, slammed on the glass. But it hadn't grown sharp yet. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. He stared at the figure outside the window with a sneer and slowly put a glove on the mutated hand. Come in. The one who pushed the door and entered was the Golden Dragon. He walked up behind Xianxia and said eagerly, boss, the lair that has been manipulated outside was half destroyed by Shang Wanling. Now the base's ability team can hardly stop him. It doesn't matter. If you destroy it, you will destroy it. Anyway, it's just this small lair. That's the original purpose. Golden Dragon pondered Xianxia's words, but he still didn't quite understand the significance of Xianxia's actions. Then ... what does the leader mean? Xianxia asked without answering what happened to Furong. Jinlong replied quickly. At first, there was a strong rejection reaction, but after the researchers adjusted the dose, now it can be slowly recovered, completely absorbed. The Research Institute said that the values are very good. Unlike the previous failures, if everything goes well this time, this will be the most perfect. This is what Golden Dragon least expected. When he treated Ji Furong, Xianxia was actually the same, so ruthless. The 9 Layers base previously conducted physical examinations for all supernatural beings. It seemed like a benefit, but in fact, it wanted to find the most high-quality women through this large-scale data. And Ji Furong is one of them. Xianxia lowered his eyes to arrange his exquisite leather gloves, and then held them up in the air with extreme elegance and turned them slightly left and right to appreciate them carefully. But he said the cruelest words word by word. Let them take good care of Furong. She is about to become the female alien that everyone is looking at. The Golden Dragon responded repeatedly, and when he wanted to go out, Xianxia put down the gloved one. He motioned for him to come closer. Since Xianxia was severely beaten by Music King twice, his whole body has not only become cloudy, but also cruel and cold-blooded. With regard to Ji Furong's matter, he developed fear of Xianxia. The Golden Dragon didn't dare to get too close. There was a hint of excitement in Xianxia's eyes, pointing to the girl not far from the window who was holding an umbrella and wearing light blue clothes, talking to others on the side of the road. Bring her here. He remembered that Bai Anguo had just met Xianxia not long ago. The cooperation agreement was reached, and I wanted to remind him that Bai Lao, but Xianxia gave him a cold look and stopped talking. Xianxia suddenly smiled sinisterly. After his daughter arrives, he will also have a physical examination. Jin Jinlong opened his mouth in shock. But in the end, he didn't dare to say anything, so he could only respond. Music King crossed his legs gracefully and placed his strong forearm on the armrest of the leather chair casually. He was listening to Chen Wei's report on his work with lowered eyes. When Bai Anguo saw Gu Ming and the others come back, he already guessed that we had already seen through Qian. Recently, in order to keep in touch with Jichong Base, he intends to marry his daughter to Xianxia. Before, we followed Qian's clue all the way, and we have figured out all those people hiding in the southern border, a total of 34 people. Except for Qian before, no one else has touched the important area. Muzi Chang was calm and composed. Let Gao Ding clean up some of these people first. Don't move the rest. Keep them first. Chen Wei didn't understand. Why, so he asked, then why don't we solve it together? Lang Yi, this is the only bargaining chip Bai Lao can use to negotiate with Xianxia. If all the chess pieces are pulled out, Bai Lao will not be able to play with Xianxia. Anguo couldn't keep singing this play. If he couldn't keep singing, how could he be uprooted? Wei ran at this time. The satellite phone on the desktop rang. Chen Wei picked it up and looked at it, then handed it to Mu Ziking. It's Colonel Shengguan. Mu Ziking accepted it and responded in a low voice. Something seemed to be said over there, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Then he stood up and walked towards the window. After listening quietly for a while, he responded with a word or two from time to time. Okay, finally hung up the satellite phone. Wei Ran was originally playing games on the sofa, but when Shengguan Ling called, she stopped the hot game console in her hand. Shengguan Ling has been out for almost 2 months, and half of the lair has been destroyed. Could it be that something unexpected happened when he called at this time? She walked up to him and asked, "Brother, what's the matter?" Mu Ziking gently placed the satellite phone on the windowsill. Let me remember the base meeting, and at the same time, be prepared for the possibility that he won't be able to come back, because he found out that Bai Anguo was in his army. This is Bai Anguo. The plan was to make Shengguan Ling never return to the southern border base. Although Mu Ziking guessed that so many alien lairs popping up on the border of the southern border were a trap set by Xianxia and Bai Anguo, he also told Shengguan Ling about this situation. But Bai Anguo also took advantage of Shengguan Ling. Even if he knew there was a pit ahead, he would jump into it. Because Shengguan Ling would never let these alien lairs appear anywhere in the southern border. Furthermore, if Shengguan Ling didn't go out, some dirt hidden in the ground would not come out. Wei Ran was relieved when she heard that it was just like this and thought that something important had happened. She leaned slightly against the desk. There is still more than a month before the base meeting, and there is still time, and we have been preparing. Su sitting at the desk, Wei said, "Brother Cheng, you asked me to expand the manpower and secretly replace Bai Anguo's people in various departments. It is already in progress. In order not to make Bai Anguo suspicious, I change a few people with irrelevant positions every once in a while, and even if he finds out in the end, it will be too late." Mu Ziking nodded slightly. The expansion of personnel was made by Muzimu, who had already asked Su Yi to start preparations in this regard when he decided to take over the southern border base. Because Su Yi was already the leader of the ability team in Beijing, he is familiar with and can understand who can be wanted, who can be considered, and who can't. This Gyuming and his elders seem to be doing nothing every day, but in fact they have been secretly responsible for duties in different directions. Gyuming is obsessed with weapons so much that he can be called a top expert, he said too. And he absolutely dare not be said first, so he is responsible for the research and development of weapons and the safety of the entire base. Chen Wei has followed Mu Zikang from before, dealing with interpersonal relationships, negotiations, and management. Jiang Nanfeng is not only a maintenance expert but also a peak hacker. He is familiar with various program intrusion and anti-intrusion. For example, the Superintelligence Laboratory has added an extremely complicated Trojan horse program that only he understands. Once there is any unexpected situation that paralyzes the Superintelligence Laboratory, it can also be activated immediately to continue to maintain operations. Yan Yang is responsible for the intelligence monitoring of the entire base and controls information management. Each performs his duties in an orderly manner. Mu Zikang has been busy for a long time. Wei Ran thought about taking out his vitamin supplements. He took out a large plate of fruit that had been cut and placed delicately from the space, and moved a chair to sit beside Mu Zikang to feed him. Wei Ran's cooking skills are not good, but her knife skills are good. Of course it can't compare with Gyuming's smooth knife skills, but she can still be served on the table. In the past 2 days and nights, Wei Ran heard him cough twice occasionally, so Wei Ran prepared more lotus mist for him to moisten his lungs and quench his thirst. She took out another cup of health water that she had prepared, and put it in a straw so that he could drink it while reading the materials. Mu Zikang has gotten used to being treated like a child by her these days, and he doesn't ask what it is like a few days ago. Now she eats whatever she gives her. Although his eyes were always looking at the base information in his hand, his peripheral vision drifted towards Wei Ran. Noticing that she just fed him but he didn't eat a bite, he suddenly put down the information in his hand. Wei Ran didn't know, so he looked at him and saw him wipe his hands with a wet tissue, just about to say that he doesn't need to take it, but before she could say it, Mu Zikang picked up the fruit from the plate and stuffed it into her little mouth, making her swell for a while. Oh. Mu Zikang looked at her like a little squirrel gnawing on something. She couldn't be too cute. You also need to take more vitamins. I haven't looked at you for a while, so you want to pick one again. Wei Ran made a vague excuse. Well, I didn't. It was originally here. Another piece of apple was stuffed into her mouth. Immediately afterwards, Mu Zikang pulled her to sit sideways on his tight legs and tightly held her soft waist. Jianyu's face darkened. Why did you avoid me when you slept last night? Huh? Wei Ran groaned inwardly. How could he still remember this? Originally, the two of them were in bed last night when they were in love, but Wei Ran suddenly dodged left and right, saying that she was tired and wanted to sleep. Of course Mu Zikang didn't believe it, but he just let her go. But letting her go last night doesn't mean letting her go now. She has never been so abnormal. Wei Ran faltered then. That didn't you say? That you are tired, go to bed early and wake up early to be healthy. She evaded a lot of words again and again. But Mu Zikang watched her quietly all the time. In the end, Wei Ran couldn't stand it any longer, and lowered her head and said softly like a mosquito, I'm not doing this for you to recover your powers as soon as possible, just. Let's abstain from sexual intercourse first. Mu Zikang was extremely angry by her. Laughing, who told you that doing this can restore the ability as soon as possible? Wei Ran chuckled a few times and pinched her sallow fingers. No one. I just think that first let the blood flow through the whole body, and then this kind of rapid blood circulation may be effective. Mu Zikang gritted his teeth and forced out a sentence. I seeing me being tortured by you like this. My powers haven't recovered, so my blood vessels burst and I went first. No wonder she was so active last night, kissing here and there again, and finally became sexual, but she fell asleep as soon as she fell on the pillow and said she was asleep. Wei Ran opened her eyes wide. No way, it was just once last night. It was just the first time, and Mu Zikang was absolutely sure that Wei Ran planned to keep doing this until he recovered. Mu Zikang stared at her and asked quietly, Could it be that you just love my supernatural ability? Wei Ran retorted loudly to prove her innocence. Of course not, I only love my brother. Supernatural powers are nothing. I have supernatural powers now. Even if you can't recover, I will protect you. Her sudden passionate confession seemed to make Mu Zikang's face relax a little. Wei Ran was just about to take a breath for this, when Mu Zikang's deep voice came from beside her ear. Really? I don't believe it. You can prove it to me. Scared Wei Ran blinked her clear eyes stupidly. How? How do I prove it? Oh, Mu Zikang held her left ankle and straddled his strong abdominal muscles, forming a posture of straddling and facing each other. Wei Ran was wearing a dark blue one-piece dress today. When Mu Zikang pulled her feet over, the dress slipped off her fair and delicate legs, revealing the black lace inside. Of course, Mu Zikang did not ignore this pleasant scenery. Darkness flashed in the bottom of his eyes. A low, hoarse voice approached her. Chapter 124. Rumors spread all over Ping District Island and Wei Ran didn't know what Mu Zikang meant by proof. Flushing appeared from her fair neck and spread rapidly. She crossed her arms around the back of Mu Zikang's neck, lowered her flushed face. This is the office. Mu Zikang gently pinched the soft flesh around her waist, approached her and said something, which made Wei Ran shy. Unceasingly, he clenched his small pink fist and gave him a light thump. In the chaotic world, you will be injured and unable to move at will, so I will take the initiative. But he didn't care, picked her up and walked directly to the simple lounge inside. In the end, Mu Zikang told Wei Ran how terrible it was to provoke him. After a few days of peaceful days at the southern border base, there was a disturbance on Ping District Island. Ping District Island used to be the largest island in the southern border base, and later it was opened up for the poorest people to live in. That is the so-called slums. Sheng Guanling originally wanted to live in a uniform way for these ordinary poor people without supernatural powers for the time being, and then replanned. But later, because of the ensuing war of confrontation, this place was repeatedly stranded. This island is huge, equivalent to a small town. Later, some people with supernatural powers came in to dominate, coupled with the lack of management. It gradually became an area without jurisdiction, which is commonly known as the Gangster Association. Half of the people who were found in the Juzhong base before were found here, and the part that Gao Ding cleaned up was hiding in Pink Island. The reason for the riots on Ping District Island this time is that ordinary people disappeared inexplicably one after another and no trace was found. But in the beginning, no one knew about the disappearance of those people. It was not until the leader of the society disappeared that it attracted widespread attention. After a search, it was found that several others were missing. Rumors suddenly spread everywhere, and people panicked. Later, someone took advantage of the delay in the matter and maliciously directed the intention to burn the fire to Yiki Island, saying that Mu Zikang had a snow lion with supernatural powers who came out to eat people. Now, Ping District Island is strongly urging Mu Zikang to hand over the snow lion to be executed. Yehi Island. Chen Wei put the documents about this incident on the desktop. 10 people have disappeared. All of them are from Ping District Island, and all of them are ordinary people. Xiao Bai, whose head was wrestling with the ball of wool, was happy. Look at how stupid it is. How did this rumor spread? I'm about to fall. Go away. Oh my god, I'm crushed to death. Xiao Bai grinned at Jiang Yanfeng's ridicule, and immediately turned around and bit Jiang Yanfeng's pants, dragging him off the sofa and dragging him to the ground. On Jiang Yanfeng. Wei Ran was amused. Then she picked up the information and flipped through the pages. This is really weird. The access control of the base does not show that these people have gone out, nor have they stepped out of Pink Island, and they have not found corpses or anything like that. At that time, Yan Yang and Su Yi had sent supplies to Shengguanling, otherwise she could have found out with plants. Guming looked at Mu Zikang. There is no abnormality in the access control of the base, so we can be sure that whether these people are alive or dead, they were all done by people in the base, and they have already died without a whole body. Mu Zikang nodded, half-closed his eyes and muttered. Long, clean fingers tapped the material of the table. All missing persons have one thing in common. Everyone looked at Mu Zikang. He slowly opened his eyes and said coldly, the 10 people are all lonely. Kang's words made everyone suddenly realize. The assailant took advantage of this so no one discovered it all the time. If the last one who disappeared was the leader of the society, the missing persons would continue, and others would just think that he was just leaving. Wei Ran is now more interested in the incident, not only because Zhao Bai was framed innocently, but also because the perpetrator still has some brains. The next day, they drove to Ping District Island. There are no towering houses here, and some are just simple bungalows, which can be seen to be built by themselves. Ping District Island was temporarily opened up from a deserted island before, so when these people came, they didn't have any houses, they just cleared them out and put up tents to live in. It was precisely because there were no houses at that time that the infrastructure was extremely backward. There were no water pipes to every household. Only at the beginning was Shang Guanling sent someone to build a large well for them to use water. Every household carried water back home every day. Prepare water at home. But fortunately, the power consumption is still normal. People who took refuge in the end of the world didn't have too many demands, and it was best to have a place to settle down. Wei Ran looked at the hurrying pedestrians around here. This Ping District Island is still very big, and it can barely reach a small county town, but it is very chaotic. An independent small group has been formed here resolutely Hugh. There are no patrols, no monitoring equipment, and the order is extremely chaotic. Zhang Nanfeng saw that most of the houses were still relatively close together. He wondered if someone is attacked here, the people around should be able to hear it. Why do they say that they didn't hear anything? There were two groups of people holding knives or sticks from the alley all the way in front of them, fighting like a martial arts hegemony. Jiang Nanfeng and the others. That's why even if someone would call for help, no one would come out to take a look, because this is a place that is abandoned by people and leads to the breeding of criminals. Moreover, most of the people living here are ordinary people without supernatural powers, and it is difficult for them to protect themselves, let alone meddling in other people's affairs. As long as it's not on him, he won't care about it even if it's broken. Wei Ran flashed a piece of information showing that the addresses of the basic victims were not far from each other, and she suddenly had a thought, brother, this person should live in Ping District Island, because only in this way can we clearly know who the victims are. It is suitable for committing crimes. And most of the victims' addresses are not far away. They may be acquaintances who committed the crime. I think we have to live there for a few days before we can find out anything. King nodded. Well, let's live in the houses of the victims who have vacated them. In order to find out the results as soon as possible, they disguised themselves and moved into the wooden houses of the victims one by one, which happened to be 4, one for each of them. In order not to let people find it more real, Wei Ran asked Gu Yiming and the others to drink the supernatural disappearing water. Wei Ran researched this to play not long ago. After drinking it, no one will notice the existence of his supernatural ability for 3 days. In the eyes of other supernatural beings, he is just like an ordinary person. This time, Wei Ran was very relieved to let Mu Ziking live alone, because Gu Ming and the others did not find any high-level people with supernatural powers nearby. With Gu Ming and the others' current unfathomable levels, no matter how others hide their abilities, it will be useless in front of Gu Ming and the others. And even if Mu Ziking had no supernatural powers, few people could match his skills. But just in case, Wei Ran still lived in the room opposite Mu Ziking, so that both parties could see the opposite side clearly by opening the wooden windows. Mu Ziking and his party pretended not to know each other, and went to their own wooden houses one after another. Wei Ran was the last to arrive. She changed into clothes made of rougher fabrics, and carrying a whitish cloth bag, she came to her small room. Not far to the left of the door of her cabin, there was an old man sitting in the sun and staring at her, smiling sinisterly. There is a vicious little brother at a distance on the right who is now wearing a thin coat in late autumn, but he is showing his left green dragon and right white tiger chest muscles with his upper body exposed. A little further up, there was a young girl on the second floor of a wooden house looking at herself with the window wide open. Wei Ran looked at the people around her without any trace. The people on this street are really weird. Little girl, you look really juicy. An old and hoarse old voice suddenly sounded in the ear, which startled Wei Ran. She turned her head sharply. It turned out that an aunt in her 50s was smiling kindly at her. Wei Ran immediately replied with a smile, "Thank you." Then she asked the aunt obediently, "Auntie, where do you live and how long have you lived here?" The aunt pointed to a relatively detailed building in the first few rooms. Mimi smiled and said, "No, that is my home. It was built by my son. My son used to be an architect, but he is very good." Wei Ran looked at the house, although she did not understand architecture, but in terms of appearance alone, Auntie did not lie. "Your son is really good, and the wooden houses are all built exquisitely." "Hee hee, what's your name, little girl?" "My surname is Wei, you can call me Xiaoren." "Xiaoren? That sounds nice, my surname is Li." Suddenly, Aunt Li looked around, approached Wei Ran and said in a low voice, "You have to be careful about your house, someone died before." Wei Ran pretended to be shocked and scared. Then she continued to ask this. "Aunt Li, what's going on? I just came here, and I was arranged to live here." Aunt Li told the whole story with a gossipy face. "It was just a while ago. People don't like to go out or talk, but they only go out occasionally when they are off work. One day, people from the base came suddenly and we knew that the person was missing and there were more than one person. In fact, what did you say? He must be dead." Wei Ran covered her mouth in surprise. "Scary? There are several people here like this. Do you know how these people died?" Aunt Li waved her hand. "Then I don't know, but don't they all say that it was a snow-white lion demon with fangs? Have you eaten?" Wei Ran. How should I put it? All I can say is that the rumors are terrible." Aunt Li wanted to chatter about something, but inadvertently looked down at her wristwatch and shouted, "Oh, I'm going home to cook for my son. Xiao Ran, I'm leaving." With the warm and kind lie after the aunt waved goodbye, she took the cloth bag, unlocked the door and pushed open the closed cabin. Squeak. The sound of the wooden door sounded in the silence. Because the structure of the wooden house is simple, there are only two small windows next to the front door, but the two sides are not transparent because they are close to other wooden houses. From the door, it looked like a dark passage. Because there was no one living there for some time, it also gave off a musty smell. Not to mention, this is really a bit eerie. She went in and pressed the switch, and a light bulb in the middle of the room flickered twice and turned on. But the light is dim. Then she closed the wooden door and locked it again. The first floor is a small living room, and there is a simple kitchen in a small corner, but there is nothing related to food, and there is a toilet in the innermost. Wei Ran frowned slightly. How did this man live? Going in, there is a small narrow staircase, which is only enough for one person to pass. She walked slowly up the creaking little stairs. The second floor is a bedroom, but there is not even a decent bed, just a dirty blanket on the ground as the bed. It seems that this person's life is extremely bad, but it shouldn't be. The base now provides a lot of jobs. Even if you are a low-level person, you can't live like this. It can't be summed up by being poor. She put on the communication equipment and tried to call Musiking brother Shi. Walked to the window facing the street by the bed and was about to open it. Then Musiking's deep voice came from over there. "Don't open the window, you will be seen by other people." She stopped, took a small stool from the space and sat down. "Brother, the life of the people who lived here before was very simple. They are all walls. Well, my place is considered clean." At this moment Zhang Nanfeng's voice also came. "Hey, I am not here. This is a bit of supplies. I found the rice and oil he hid, and the room is clean. It's pretty clean." Guming also said, "I'm the same here. I also hide some supplies, but it's relatively clean and tidy." Wei Ran was confused. Clean? She took a look at her place. If the dust was not mentioned, this place was indeed clean. Just as she was thinking, Muziking's deep voice woke her up. Ran, have you locked the door on the first floor? She restrained her expression and replied, it's locked. I just met a very enthusiastic aunt downstairs and chatted for a while. Wei Ran thought that Aunt Li just described Xiaobai's face. Suddenly laughed out loud. What are you laughing at? Brother, you don't even know that according to the rumors, our Xiaobai has been turned into a big scary-looking monster. Jiang Nanfeng laughed a few times and shouted, that's right. Halfway through, you can see that no animal has supernatural powers, and there is a basis for being rumored like this. Wei Ran said fiercely, Nanfeng, when I get back, I will tell Xiaobai that you agree that it is a monster. Jiang Nanfeng immediately said, I'll shut up. Wei Ran was quiet for a while, then continued, the one who can spread such rumors must be aimed at us, it should be Bai Angguo. Mu Zicheng pondered for a while, and seemed to sneer, Zhao Bai, who can use this kind of irrelevant matter to get on Yai Highland, there is no one else but him. Bai Angguo's purpose can be seen at a glance, that is, using this incident to let Mu Zicheng take on social affairs, thus adding a powerful event to attack Mu Zicheng at the base meeting. But he never knew that Mu Zicheng didn't need other people's approval. Knock. Knock. At this moment, Wei Ran heard a knock on the door downstairs. Brother, wait a minute, someone is knocking on the door, I'll go and have a look. She took off the communication equipment and put it away, walked down the stairs and opened the wooden door on the first floor. It was Aunt Li just now, holding a steaming bowl of noodles in her hand. Seeing Wei Ran open the door, he took a step forward. Xiao Ran, I just saw that your little cloth bag was very flimsy, and I thought you didn't have much to eat, so I made you a bowl of plain noodles. You also despise Auntie's poor cooking. Wei Ran hurriedly waving her hand, you can't have it, Auntie. Auntie Li said with a chuckle, it's just plain noodles, and there's no meat in Auntie's place. You can eat it, it's clean. Chapter 125. The Enthusiastic Neighbor. Wei Ran couldn't shirk it, so he had no choice but to take the bowl of plain noodles, which was hard to get over, and thank him again and again. She sniffed the smell, it's very fragrant. Aunt Li said cheerfully, taste the smell quickly and see if it fades away. Those who come here have traveled long distances and are extremely short of supplies. Under normal circumstances, who can resist a bowl of hot noodles that can fill the hunger? Wei Ran could only bite the bullet and pick up the bowl just to sip and taste. At this time, the muscular guy next to the wooden house came over with a threatening face. Hey, why have I never seen you get me a bowl? Do you look down on me? Aunt Li trembled when she heard his rough voice, as if some are afraid of this muscular guy. No, I just saw seeing that this little girl's family is so pitiful, so, hey. Suddenly, but he walked between Wei Ran and Aunt Li in 2 or 3 steps, and was about to snatch her away. Of course, Wei Ran on the other side wouldn't let go of that bowl of noodles, but the muscular brother snatched it up again. As a result, after going back and forth like this, the bowl fell to the ground and spilled all over the floor. Anger appeared on Wei Ran's face, but when Mu Zikeng's figure appeared in the opposite cabin, he realized that he was a weak and helpless character now. She gave Mu Zikeng a subtle wink to tell him not to come over, so Mu Zikeng was leaning against the door at this moment like a bystander who didn't think it was a big deal to watch the excitement. Jing and Feng and Gu Ming were sitting or standing not far away. She only stopped for a moment at the muscular brother, then lowered her head in fear, looking like a person who dared not speak. Seeing that the noodles had been overturned, the muscular brother snorted coldly and walked away by himself. Aunt Li looked at the dusty noodles on the ground and sighed regretfully, it's all wasted, I'll go back and cook another bowl, then she turned and went back to her home. Wei Ran pulled her back and said, thank you, Aunt Li, but I really don't need it. I brought some dry food with me, and I ate some just now so you don't have to work anymore. Well, I'll give it to you next time. Do it. Hearing what Wei Ran said, Aunt Li stopped insisting on her enthusiasm. After Aunt Li left, Wei Ran looked sideways at Mu Zikeng and raised her eyebrows slightly, then turned around and locked the door, and then walked straight along the street to see if there were any clues. She didn't glance back, and she knew that Musikang would definitely follow. This street is just one of the residential areas, and there is a 2-meter wide aisle in the middle for pedestrians to pass. This place can be regarded as a slightly remote place on Ping District Island. Going out of this street and turning a little further, there is a large platform, and there is a newspaper board with various recruitment notices and papers for responding to tasks. Some people are still blindly waiting for others to save them, while others are already thinking about how to survive in this last days. For example, those who own a car can form a team with those who do not have a car to go out to look for supplies, or there are still a lot of houses that need to be built here, and those who have experience in building houses can exchange them for supplies at this time. At this time, a few young idlers walked out of another street. They didn't want to work, and they didn't have supernatural powers. They could only hide in the island of Ping District and do some sneaky things. Such people abound in Ping District Island. One of the young men saw Wei Ran, who was standing in front of the bulletin board, and she became lustful. "Little beauty, why haven't I seen you? You're new here. Would you like to go play with my brothers? We have a lot of supplies." Those people immediately surrounded. Wei Ran didn't bother with them, turned around and wanted to leave but was blocked by one of them. "Don't go, little sister." She winked Chuayu Shui Minghao, okay, then she retreated step by step into the alley behind. After a while, ghost cries and wolf howls came from the depths of the alley. Wei Ran leisurely walked out from the end of the alley. After she walked out for a while, Musikang, who was elegantly arranging his collar, also came out calmly and straightly behind her. About 10 minutes later, I walked to a place similar to a market, but this market is different from the market where you can sell freely outside. Instead, there are people guarding the entrance. Anyone who enters to set up a stall has to pay the so-called entry protection fee, and even those who go in to buy items have to pay a little. Wei Ran was puzzled. Although there is a lack of management here, it is not enough to be independent to the division. You dare to be blatant under the explicit prohibition of private charges. She recalled the scene when Musikang first received the southern border. At the beginning of the southern border base, Shangwan Ling was extremely tolerant to those who came in. He didn't collect any materials, and even asked the county department to take out the materials and distribute them, which once put the southern border into trouble. Later, after Muzi took over, he opposed this decision. In order to recuperate, the southern border base cannot collect other related materials for the time being, but people who enter the southern border base must pay the monthly rental materials for the living space. Shangwan Ling didn't agree at first, but Musikang's cold words made him unable to refute. Human nature will never be satisfied. If you give them the most comfort today, what else can you give tomorrow? In the end, you will push yourself into a corner. Bai Anguo is the best example. If people who came to take refuge in the southern border were given an inch of land today without charging any fees, then in the long run they would take it as their own for granted, and in the end they would bite back and frame up, which would even cause turmoil. The land must never be lost, not even half an inch. The yelling over there brought her back to her senses. She walked in along the flow of people, and saw a duty room at the entrance, where some supplies were piled up. This place is really good enough. Depending on the height of the sky, the emperor is far away. If it wasn't for this incident, they wouldn't even know that this place has been designated as the king. Because she didn't hold anything in her hand, the guards at the door stopped her and let her in. And after she came in, she found out that this market not only has goods exchange, there is actually a room dedicated to introducing job intermediaries, and there is a bulletin board at the door that says various jobs. In other words, the bulletin board that Wei Ran saw just now was only for temporary workers, and all the slightly better jobs appeared on this board. There are a lot of jobs like this outside of Ping District Island, where there is no introduction fee, but if the people here want to work safely and safely, they must go through this small intermediary, otherwise they will be tortured to death by the people here. Must. Musikang, who was following behind her, had cold eyes. Bai Anguo did the right thing by making a mistake this time. At night, Wei Ran opened the wooden window on the second floor to let in some air. The old man who sat downstairs basking in the sun during the day was also staring at Wei Ran from his own window on the second floor. Wei Ran closed the wooden window facing the old man with a cold face. Out of sight is pure. Just when she was about to turn around, she saw Aunt Lee coming back from outside in the dark, with a big basket on her wrist, and the contents in the basket seemed to be moving. When the curious Wei Ran wanted to take a closer look, Aunt Lee had already taken out the key and unlocked the door. Up. Mu Zikang also stood at the wooden window on the second floor, looking at Wei Ran. Clear and elegant, stable and mature. No one would have imagined that he was distracted right now. It's a pity I can't hold her to sleep tonight. This is the first time he really feels that he has no powers. Really. Not good.